Vin Diesel entered the world, carrying a quiet mystery that would shape him long before fame ever found him. Born Mark Sinclair in California in 1967, his birth certificate listed no father, leaving only unanswered questions about where he came from and who he might one day become. Raised by his mother, Delora, a thoughtful and imaginative woman with a deep love for astrology and art, Vin grew up in an environment that valued creativity more than convention. His mother never offered clear answers about his biological father, and over time, Vin learned to live comfortably with uncertainty. Rather than seeing the unknown as a burden, he treated it as space for self-definition. That early sense of ambiguity planted the seed for a powerful independence. Without a roadmap or inherited identity, Vin would have to build his own. And from an early age, he seemed ready for the challenge. Growing up inside an artist's world, Vin and his twin brother Paul were raised in New York City's Westbeth Artists Housing, a place unlike most childhood homes. Instead of quiet suburban streets, they grew up surrounded by painters, musicians, dancers, actors, and writers. Creativity lived in the hallways. Conversations about art were normal dinner table topics. For Vin, this environment didn't feel unusual. It felt natural. His stepfather, Irving Vincent, was a theater director who believed deeply in the power of storytelling and self-expression. Irving didn't push Vin toward fame. He simply introduced him to the idea that stories matter and that performance can move people. Watching actors rehearse, seeing stage lights glow, and listening to passionate discussions about character and emotion all became part of Vin's everyday life. Without realizing it, he was absorbing the language of performance. Long before cameras arrived, Vin Diesel was already living inside a world built on imagination, the accidental beginning of an actor. Vin's first step into acting didn't come from ambition. It came from curiosity and a bit of mischief. At 7 years old, he and a group of friends broke into a local theater planning to cause trouble. Instead of calling the police, the theater's director handed the children scripts and offered them small roles in a play. Vin accepted, not knowing that moment would quietly change everything. Standing on stage, speaking lines, and hearing an audience respond sparked something deep inside him. It felt natural. It felt alive. Acting didn't feel like pretending. It felt like discovering parts of himself he hadn't known existed. That experience taught Vin an early lesson. Sometimes opportunity arrives disguised as accident. He didn't suddenly decide to become famous. He simply realized he loved telling stories. That love would stay with him, even during the hardest years. Finding strength in hard times' teenage life was not gentle to Vin Diesel. Money was tight, and stability was never guaranteed. He learned quickly that survival required discipline, resilience, and physical endurance. By 17, he was working as a nightclub bouncer in Manhattan, a job that demanded constant alertness and courage. Night after night, he stood between chaos and order, dealing with volatile situations that could shift in seconds. It wasn't glamorous work, but it taught him how to stay calm under pressure and how to command respect without words. During this time, Vin also began training his body using whatever equipment he could find. He lifted makeshift weights, did endless push-ups, and pushed himself beyond comfort. The transformation was slow but steady. He wasn't building muscles for the screen. He was building armor for life. Strength became both physical and mental, shaping the presence audiences would one day recognize. A nickname that became a name inside the clubs where Vin worked. Co-workers started calling him Diesel. The name reflected his endurance, reliability, and seemingly endless energy. It stuck. Over time, Vin embraced it, eventually turning it into the name the world would know. But the nickname wasn't about intimidation. It was about survival. Those years taught Vin how to read people, how to stay composed, and how to trust his instincts. Even surrounded by danger, he held on to his creative dreams. After long nights working security, he still imagined himself writing scripts and performing on screen. Many people would have abandoned such dreams under the weight of exhaustion. Vin didn't. He treated acting like a quiet promise to himself. No one was watching. No one was applauding. But he kept believing. That quiet faith became one of the most important forces in his life. Education as a tool for storytelling. Vin enrolled at Hunter College to study English, not because he wanted a traditional career, but because he wanted to become a better storyteller. He loved literature, language, and the way words could shape emotion. While juggling classes and work, he began thinking seriously about writing his own material. He saw that waiting for permission in Hollywood often led nowhere. He believed that if he wanted roles, he might have to create them himself. Leaving college just a few credits shy of graduation was not an easy decision, but Vin felt pulled toward a bigger risk. He wasn't running away from education, he was running toward possibility. This choice reflected his growing belief that artists must sometimes leap before they feel ready. He didn't know what would happen next. He only knew he couldn't ignore the voice inside, urging him forward. Invisible in Hollywood. Vin's early years in Hollywood were quiet, lonely, and often discouraging. Casting rooms were full of people who didn't quite know where to place him. He didn't fit neatly into narrow categories, and that ambiguity became a barrier instead of a strength. He landed tiny roles, including an uncredited appearance in Awakenings, but nothing close to a breakthrough. For years, Vin heard more no than yes. Yet rejection didn't harden him. It sharpened him. He began writing his own short film, drawing from his real experiences of being judged by appearance and misunderstood by the industry. Rather than waiting to be chosen, he chose himself. This mindset shift would become the foundation of his career. Vin wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing expression. And sometimes, expression requires standing alone, creating his own voice. The short film Multifacial was born from frustration, honesty, and determination. Vin wrote, directed, produced, and starred in it on a tiny budget. The story followed an actor navigating identity and rejection, mirroring Vin's own struggles. Filming took only a few days, but emotionally, it represented years of pressure and uncertainty. At one point, Vin nearly abandoned the project, doubting whether anyone would care. His stepfather encouraged him to finish. That encouragement mattered more than he knew at the time. When Multifacial began screening at festivals, something unexpected happened. People connected with it. Industry professionals took notice. The film reached Cannes and eventually landed in front of Steven Spielberg. What began as a personal experiment became the key that unlocked everything. The door opens. Steven Spielberg saw something special in Vin Diesel, not just physical presence, but emotional depth. He cast Vin in Saving Private Ryan, rewriting a role specifically for him. Vin's performance as Private Caparzo was brief but powerful. In just a few minutes of screen time, he showed vulnerability, compassion, and courage. Audiences noticed. Directors noticed. Hollywood noticed. The years of invisibility were suddenly over. But Vin didn't treat this moment as a rival. He treated it as responsibility. He understood how rare opportunity is and how easily it disappears. Rather than chasing every offer, he focused on projects that felt meaningful. This careful approach would define the rest of his career. Building an action identity. With films like Pitch Black, Vin introduced audiences to a new kind of action hero, quiet, intense, and morally complex. He wasn't a flashy talker. His power came from presence. When The Fast and the Furious arrived in 2001, everything changed. Dominic Toretto wasn't just a street racer. He was a leader, a protector, and a man guided by loyalty. The film's themes of chosen family and belonging resonated worldwide. Vin understood why. He had spent his life searching for connection and meaning. Now he was portraying it on screen. The success of the film wasn't just financial. It cemented Vin as a cultural figure. Yet he remained cautious. He turned down immediate sequels when the story didn't feel right. For him, integrity mattered more than fast money. Becoming a creative force. As the Fast franchise grew, Vin became more than an actor. He became a producer and creative architect. He negotiated ownership and influence, ensuring he had a voice in the stories being told. This wasn't about control, it was about protection. He wanted to protect the heart of the characters and the themes that made audiences care. Through his production companies, Vin built a system that allowed him to support projects he believed in. This business intelligence transformed him into one of Hollywood's most powerful behind-the-scenes figures. Yet he remained grounded in his origins as a storyteller. Every decision traced back to one simple question: does this story mean something? A Brotherhood with Paul Walker. Vin's friendship with Paul Walker became one of the most meaningful relationships of his life. Their bond extended far beyond movie sets. They supported each other personally and professionally, sharing a deep respect built on trust. When Paul died in 2013, Vin was devastated. Grief reshaped him. He honored Paul not only through public tributes, but through private commitments. Naming his daughter Pauline and staying close to Paul's family reflected a promise that love doesn't end with loss. Vin carries Paul's memory into every chapter of his life. Their story remains one of Hollywood's most genuine examples of brotherhood. Choosing privacy in a public world. Despite global fame, Vin Diesel guards his personal life fiercely. He rarely speaks publicly about his children or his long-term partner, Paloma Jimenez. This isn't secrecy, it's protection. Vin believes childhood should be lived, not documented. He wants his kids to know who they are before the world tries to define them. He avoids filming on their birthdays and prioritizes being present. For a man whose career depends on spectacle, his private life is intentionally simple. Family, to Vin, is sacred. A quiet love for fantasy. Away from explosions and engines, Vin loves fantasy worlds. He has played Dungeons & Dragons for decades, finding joy in imagination, teamwork, and storytelling. This hobby reveals a softer side of the action star. Vin isn't always chasing intensity. Sometimes he just wants to sit at a table with friends and build stories together. It's the same impulse that drove him to theater as a child. The medium changes, the heart doesn't. Facing conflict and growth. Vin's career hasn't been free of tension. Creative disagreements and set conflicts have occurred, as they do in most long-running franchises. But Vin approaches challenges with a long-term mindset. He believes growth often comes through discomfort. Rather than pretending to be perfect, he acknowledges mistakes and moves forward. His focus remains on building something lasting, not winning short-term battles. Redefining masculinity. Vin Diesel's appeal isn't just muscles and intensity, it's emotional availability. His characters cry, they protect children, they value family. Vin shows that strength and vulnerability can coexist. This redefinition of masculinity has quietly influenced modern action cinema. Toughness doesn't have to mean coldness. Power doesn't have to mean cruelty. Vin's presence sends a different message. Real strength includes compassion. A legacy built on choice. Vin Diesel's journey wasn't handed to him. He built it decision by decision, choosing art over comfort, choosing integrity over easy money, choosing family over fame. His legacy isn't just box office numbers. It's the example he sets, that you can shape your destiny even when the starting line feels unfair. The man beneath the myth behind the shaved head and gravelly voice is a thoughtful, sensitive storyteller. Vin is a son shaped by mystery, a father guided by love, and an artist driven by purpose. He never pretends to be perfect. He simply tries to be real. And in an industry built on illusion, that authenticity stands out. Conclusion. Vin Diesel's life is not a fairy tale. It is a human story. A story of uncertainty, perseverance, friendship, creativity, and choice. From a child who wandered into a theater by accident to a man who built one of cinema's largest franchises, Vin's path proves that identity isn't something you're given. It's something you create. His journey reminds us that strength is more than muscle, success is more than money, and legacy is more than fame. True legacy lives in the lives we touch, the stories we tell, and the love we leave behind.